Well, story remains the same. Winners are winning, losers are losing. Tesla gets another upgrade. Value stocks getting hit. What changes this story? I don't know. Let's find out. The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. And this is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble. Christian. Here we go again. Another day. Another 12-point rally in Tesla. Another sell-off in the value names. I mean, it's like Groundhog Day around here. It's the same story, it seems like, every single day. How's your morning?
Not bad. I hope you're feeling better. Yeah, I'm looking at, what's leading and what's lagging. I'm looking over at the small caps. Small caps actually were up yesterday for a change.
Oh, that's nice.
They're back. Well, they're back down about 70 basis points.
That lasted a day.
So yeah, I mean it's incredible the separation that we're getting. I don't know if the catalyst is going to be tomorrow with the Fed speak. We've got some economics coming out at 8:30. Let me do a quick rundown of what we got with the price action. And I noticed, and I'm using TradingView, and I'm going to use SPY here for a minute because there's a contract issue change that looks like it's causing a blip. But we're down. I'll give you, even though I'm using SPY, I'll give you the percentage change. We're down now 0.4 of a percentage point. So we haven't really seen much volatility, in the overnight session too much. So we got a touch of it. So basically I think this is giving back yesterday's gains. And then some. This is right around where we started the pre-market session yesterday. So that's a U-turn in SPY. Qs once again faring a little bit better. You could see not quite as much of a leak as the S&P, but still nevertheless down. I'm just going to mention the small caps, which have taken out yesterday's lows. So that's more of a leak there. So again, to your point, Dennis, for now, this is going the exact same way in terms of what's leading, which is the Qs, and the small caps, which are lagging. I was just going to bring in a couple other commodities really quick, even though we don't really have much, once again, I'm just going to gloss over these because it's been so quiet in things like crude and in nat gas and in copper. I'm going to bring in gold and just so that you could see the pattern of what gold is doing here, which is, again, just down a little bit. It seems just to be in consolidation for now. A couple trips back and forth around the 50-day moving average, but not a lot going on there. Bitcoin, let's talk a little bit of Bitcoin because that also is leading. So that also, the song remains the same there too.
Yeah,
with Bitcoin up another 1%. So there's a very quick rundown for you. But yeah, what do you think?
It's the same, again, so we might as well start with Tesla. So Tesla getting upgraded at Mizuho last night. I tweeted it out right after the upgrade. It was up 3 points. Now it's up 11 points. So some of these ideas are actionable that we give on Twitter there. Mizuho commentary, just basically same thing as a note we saw last week or a week and a half ago before I left. Where you've got Trump administration tailwinds, obviously, which regulatory hurdles are going to be a little bit easier, giving, some significant valuations to a lot of coming revenue sources, talking about Optimus, talking about a number of things in there, raising their price target up. Obviously, they were neutral at 220, and I think they went to 515. I don't have it written down here, but I'm just going from my memory. So significant upgrade here. We talked about those 14 analysts that had sell ratings, and some of these stocks, and this was just neutral rating, but some of these analysts are eventually going to have to throw in the towel because they're dead wrong. So, I mean, that's why you're getting this, upgrade. We talked about this cycle too. Once the stock starts going, analysts start chasing price and it drives it even further. Now, with all that being said, the stock is massively overbought here, folks. I'm long Tesla. I still own stock. I still haven't sold any of my long-term shares. But I mean, at this point in time, if you're coming in now, Mizuho analysts, I mean, a little bit feels like you're doing it backwards. 250 to 472 in 6 weeks. This is a huge move, folks. And yes, I still think the story is intact. I still think there's going to be lots of drivers in 2025, 2026. But I do think that we're due for a pause. We're due, we've come to 472 now. I almost think like, it's thinking probably 500. But I mean, at a certain point in time, it's just overbought and needs a break. So I think, I wouldn't be coming in at this point in time. If you've been watching and saying, I can't take it anymore, I got to buy it. I feel like you're kind of doing it backwards at this point in time. Again, not selling because long term, I think the stock goes higher. But short term here, if you're in it for trades, man, if you're in this for a trade, kind of feels like time to ring the register pretty soon, doesn't it?
Do you think some of these analysts are kind of like it almost reminds me a little bit about of being like a trader in terms of like maybe they've been saying for like the last couple of weeks they're like, gee, should I raise the price target? Should I? No, I'll wait another day. I'll wait another day. I'm not going to put out the note. And then finally, like they kind of capitulate and just
They
like
do. They can't take it anymore.
yeah, they can't take it anymore. Like it's kind of like if you're left out of a trade and you're watching Tesla go up every day and you're not in it. And then finally, when you go ahead and buy it, it kind of marks close to the top. And I think that's this Mizuho analyst coming in. I agree is late to the party, and you can see the stock's kind of coming off the highs a little bit. Now it's still up generously from the close, but it'll be interesting if this is kind of again. I'm not marking the top or saying anything like that because we really haven't had any like major volume that's like a blow off top like type volume. But I don't know. I'll be watching that volume today.
So, and then we got lots of other, notes here. And as much as Tesla's strength, we've seen weakness here. And remember near the beginning of the year, where Nvidia was relentlessly going higher and Tesla was just left in the dust. And it seemed like nobody wanted Tesla. And it almost seemed like some days Nvidia would be up and Tesla would be down. And it almost seemed like Tesla was moving opposite to Nvidia. You're starting to see that trade again here in reverse. And Nvidia here is down $2.50, down 1.75%. And I was even saying it I was talking with another bright trader last night. I was like, Nvidia was basically flat. Tesla got upgraded. Tesla starts ripping. I was like, you almost should just short Nvidia on the Tesla because it seems like they're going to take money from something to put it in something else. And if they're going to be buying Tesla tomorrow because of another upgrade, they're probably going to take it from the leaders. And we know Nvidia has paused here. We know Nvidia valuation you want to talk about has been stretched as well. I mean, when we were buying this at 24 times forward earnings back when it was $45 a share, now you're sitting at 40 times forward earnings. Again, can Nvidia grow into it? Yeah, but it's, been a big move here and Nvidia is pausing and it's starting to look a lot, like a head and shoulders top here, Christian, even. Not that I'm a big pattern trader, but, and I've sold the majority of my Nvidia. You know that I sold it a while ago. It's just been sitting here doing nothing, but now it's starting to resolve this pattern to the downside, which is somewhat concerning here. So as much as we can say, the S&Ps and Qs making new highs and everything's having a party, there's not a party across the board. Certain stocks are participating and certain stocks are not participating. Nvidia is definitely not participating as of late.
Yeah, and something that I've noticed too for a while, probably over the last year, it's been the situation where the Qs and the market has been really following the AI trade. And when there's a big move in Nvidia over the last year, it would bring the market push the market one way or another. And when one of these big AI companies like Nvidia was reporting earnings after hours, S&P futures would definitely move on that. There could be 10 other companies reporting, but if one of them was a key AI company like Nvidia, the market would be pushed around and be very sensitive to that. So one of the things, it was kind of my and yeah, you're absolutely right. Nvidia is leaking again this morning. But if you look at this chart, I don't have the chart that I sent out yesterday on Twitter in front of me, but if you look at just the price action versus what the Qs have been doing, there is a decoupling that's been happening. Now, Tesla could definitely be one of the catalysts. I agree with you, but it also could be just this focus all of a sudden on the quantum names.
Yeah.
Also, Broadcom has gotten a lot of attention since.
Oh my gosh!
So we could bring up that stock too. But let's talk Broadcom first. Because this was a huge follow through move yesterday.
Oh yeah, you think it's a one and done? Nope, it's going up another 10%. I mean, these moves, when the momentum, and to your point, Chris, when the momentum starts, it's some of these names, it's hard to break it. Like we are in the Momo of Momo markets. And it's, again, some Momo to the downside, where it seems like some stocks are seemingly going down almost every single day. And we'll take it back, but the DIA is down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row. Everybody's talking, S&Ps, holding up, Qs making new highs. Everything's a party. Not a party in the value names, because diamonds are full of value, and the value names are not doing very well. Berkshire Hathaway seems to go down every day. Full disclosure, I do have a short position in Berk, just a day trade here, so I will be getting out of that at the open, or potentially earlier. But 490 down to 454. I mean, that's a something move in Warren. Where we just went from an all-time high 2 weeks ago to it's telling you there's rotation here. So take it back to Broadcom. AVGO comes out with the good news last week, gets the gap up, and we just continue. The momentum starts, and it's hard to break it.
They're really when I say the analysts and it seems like the institutions really like this story at this point. Again, story, because that's kind of where we're at right now. But look at the volume the last 2 days. So to me, I wouldn't, so what do you do with the stock at this point? If you're not in it, I think you wait for a little bit of consolidation, but I will be buying whatever weakness we get in this stock. I'm not sure if we're going to get all the way back here. Maybe something macro, like the Fed meeting tomorrow can bring us down a bit, but I will be looking to get involved in this because, again, you got to kind of look at these weekly charts a bit too and realize that this is a big breakout, which we talked about in yesterday's show, of consolidation. So I think that this is not going to go away in a Broadcom. I think that this is charged, and again, it's extended here. It's way above its 5-period moving average, but I'm very interested in the name. Also, I was just going to hit on quickly before we talk a little bit more about value stocks, but the theme that's been going on in the, and this is a really nice move from yesterday on the weekly chart, but what's going on in the quantum names. So this is definitely, well, this is the daily chart. Actually, it looked like a weekly chart for a second, but this name is IONQ, out to new highs. And we talked about Google yesterday. I'll go last to Google, but RGTI is another one too, that there's some of these names were up 30, 40, 50% yesterday. So just running. And these, I think, Dennis, how would you approach some of these things? Would you say that they're a day trade, considering QUBT went from $7 yesterday to $12? Now,
I mean, again, where the party ends on some of these things is always difficult, but we've got to kind of put it in perspective. This stock was $1.41 a month ago.
Yeah.
It's a 12. So you're talking about a stock that's up over 1,000% here in the last 6 weeks. Again, the party can continue, and these things can go. We know they can continue for a long time. Do I think the story ends bad for a lot of these names? Yes, I do. Do I think the story ends ugly for a lot of these names? Yes, I do. So I don't know when the rug pull happens, but it feels like we're starting to get into rug pull territory. It feels like now people are just done with value. They're throwing all the names out. It's over. Growth has won, and we're never going to buy a value stock again. When you start feeling like that, it's usually starting to get close to a top in some of these names. And now they're just coming in certain names and just buying relentlessly. QUBT up another 10%. SPY's down, IWM's down, Q's down. Who cares? This stock's going higher. That's what the market thinks right now. Eventually, there's probably a rug pull on a stock like QUBT. There's probably a rug pull on a stock. What was the other one you were given? QUB.
QBTS. Yeah, these are tough symbols. These are not easy symbols. QBTS.
That was a buck. That was $1 in November. It's $7 now. These are big moves. Again, as a momentum trader, you can continue with the momentum, but you have to always be aware that there is an eventual rug pull happening. Even the great MSTR had the rug pull. Think about how quickly that happened when it was 543, and then boom, in one day, bam, down to 371, and you lose 25% of your money in one day. Those rug pulls happen. Now, again, MSTR is starting to look a little bit productive again, starting to form a base, starting to try to get out of here a bit. But I just feel like the easy money in a lot of these stocks has been made. I don't think it's going to be this simple going forward. And yes, we're coming into a good seasonal period for stocks. Yes, maybe the party continues for another week or two. But I mean, even Tesla, bringing it back to it. I mean, the easy money's been made in this, folks. I mean, are we going straight to 1,000? I don't think so. Does it continue to 500? Maybe a rug pull? I think there's a rug pull in here somewhere. But I mean, 250 to 470, up 80% in 5 weeks. This is serious money. Like, so if you're ringing the register on here, I will not argue with you, on a lot of these names. I mean, a lot of times it's like, when, what Harlan Pine used to always say, when you sell your peanuts when the circus is in town. These quantum names, other names, you're getting the meme stocks kicking up, GME's perking up again here. I mean, there's just a lot of names that are really moving. And the funny thing about this market is it's so, just pockets, because the majority of stocks are actually not really going up. My friend Mike there from Nashville, give you a shout out there, Mike. He was saying the NYSE cumulative advanced decline line has deteriorated even more, with 3,515 issues below their recent peak. So, I mean, you are seeing a lot of stocks not go up. You are seeing a lot of stocks actually go down, with the DIA, which is, 30 of your biggest companies out there, down 7 days in a row. IWM, XLI, all of this, value. This is more in IWM, maybe not so much, but XLI, a lot of value names in there, a lot of lower PE names in there, a lot of cyclical names in there, going down as well. So, I mean, this is such an interesting market because there is some stocks that are just going up relentlessly and some stocks just not going up.
Absolutely. This is the RSP. I've been talking a lot about this one the last couple of days. This is the same names that are in the S&P 500. So same thing that's in SPY, but instead of market cap weighted as SPY is, it is equally weighted. It's the exact same stocks. So you've got, I think that's 11 red candles now in a row. I thought maybe a lucky 11 would get it to turn yesterday, but it did not. And we're at the 50-day moving average. So yeah, I chuckle because it is really such an odd market to see something like this.
Yes,
and then to go over all those like quantum names that I went over. I also want to touch upon the what's going on in the drone names too, if we have a second with that, Dennis.
Sure.
But it is such an unusual market. What I'm doing too in my trading is like I'm just making sure I'm taking targets. I was in the QUBTS yesterday, and like I'm just ringing the register a little bit quicker than I normally would because I don't like what is going. I don't like the overall market dynamics. So you could be in some of these things, in my opinion, but you've got to really, you really got to manage them, and of course, be a risk manager with these things and understand that. I like your analogy of sell the peanuts when the circus is in town. That's a great way to think
Great
about
Harlan
it.
Payan. He always brought us that one, and it's true on a lot of these names. And part of me thinks like. It's like I'm looking even my long-term account and, it's breaking out again and again every day. And we know why, because I have a huge position in Tesla. But if, I like for instance, Tesla started, I had my kids' RESP, which is their retirement, which is their education fund. I started with 25% Tesla. So it was a big position. Normally I put 5%. So I was really convicted. It's 45% Tesla now. Like at a certain point in time, there's got to be some rebalancing. Even my wife's, RSP started, I think, at like 8 or 9% Tesla. I looked at it yesterday. It's like 22% Tesla in one stock, like her retirement fund, because it's went up so much, it's kind of taken over, and I haven't sold any in stock. So, I mean, at a certain point in time, maybe some rebalancing is due, but again, I just believe in I've drank the Elon Musk Kool-Aid. I think there's so much going on here. I think the story can continue, but, is it due for a pullback? Yeah. Would I be a buyer of dips, if Tesla got back down to the 300 area? Yeah, I would. But I mean, that's a long ways away now. I can't believe this move. Like really from when I went to Disney, it was like 355 when I went away to Disney a week and a half ago. 472. I mean, this is a big move. This is big money, folks. Yeah. Things are going. So again, if you're ringing the register here, you're probably prudent to take some money off the table in some of these names that have just went relentlessly. I mean, DXYZ, another name that is trading probably 4 to 5 times its intrinsic value. So DXYZ owns a bunch of private companies, obviously has a huge position in SpaceX. And that has been the driver. Everybody's excited about a potential SpaceX coming in, and obviously, coming in and, having, $350, billion market cap and getting all excited. And they have, they have an 11%, not 11% stake, but 11% of the fund is holding that. So it's like the way to play it. But I mean, this went from 40 to 69. I haven't looked up what the intrinsic value is, but the last time I looked at it was $12. Right. So I mean, maybe it's 14 or 15, 16 maybe. 69? I mean, some things are just ridiculously overdone.
There was one point I was going to make too. I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat. This is very unusual yesterday too, because the S&P was up about 40 basis points yesterday, and normally when that happens, the VIX is down. The VIX was actually up yesterday. I think a couple of people saw that yesterday. Now it's tough because we're coming from a pretty low level in the VIX. We're hanging around this like 13, and yesterday we're up to 14. This morning we're up to 15. So I don't know if that's a little bit of a precursor to say when the VIX is rising as the overall market is rising. That's what's called the divergence. Now we do have events, so you kind of have to understand too. The VIX could be rising into the Fed meeting tomorrow too. So there's a little bit of that to understand too, because number one, the VIX is coming from. So I'm not trying to rationalize what happened in the VIX yesterday with it up and the market up too, because that is unusual. But you also have a decent amount of events this week, hence the Fed meeting tomorrow. We've got about 7 minutes to the Fed meeting.
Retail sales?
Retail sales, sorry.
Yeah, retail
Get the
sales.
Fed meeting
don't
on my
meet that
mind.
early. They're not up that early. But yeah, so retail sales coming. That could be a mover here. I mean, retail is an interesting story here too. The separation here has been nothing short of incredible as well. Obviously, Costco, Walmart up near highs, Target leaking again, back down near the lows. We know big box, Kohl's, $14. Ooh, that's ugly. Macy's has bounced back a bit. We had an upgrade yesterday trying to get it back. I'm just kind of going through some big retail names. Nike is going to report on Thursday. It's sitting down near the lows. The bar is super low for Nike. Not sure it matters. We'll have to see, where it comes in. But the stock is just absolutely hit as well. I mean, and then, just previewing the big earnings report this week is probably Micron. Do have a position in Micron in the long-term portfolio. Again, very cyclical. Going to be interesting to see what this name does. Last earnings, it popped, but couldn't hold it. The previous earnings, it dropped, but couldn't hold it. So it seems like, the fade play is in the Micron earnings sometimes. But you're climbing back up. The predictable, which we talk about on this show, again, core strategies, being long stocks ahead of reports, tends to work because people get excited about those names. If you were buying Micron 3 days ago at 100, it's 109 that hasn't been reported yet. I mean, obviously reports tomorrow night, so you have another day and a half of it, but it's up another buck. S&P weakness across the board. Nope, it's going to report, so it's up. These are core strategies that I make my living off of. Like if I look at what I make the most money off of, and all my strategies is probably just being long stocks ahead of reports. Event-driven trading. That stuff just works. Doesn't work 100% of the time, but if it works 55% of the time, I make money.
That's a good call, because the stock has been in a range and going sideways. So perhaps this runs a little bit into the report, which is Wednesday after the close. We have 5 minutes before the retail sales number. Do we want to just talk about this drone situation that we've got going on?
What is happening with these drones over New Jersey? Do you have a theory, Christian Fromhertz? Is it UFOs? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it something we don't even know anything about? What are these drones? They've been talking about them for weeks here now over New Jersey. I see a bunch of lights and lots of deep fakes and stuff. I saw one bunch of lights flying through, and then somebody said that's just airplanes, going by. So, I mean, there's so many, things, to believe and not to believe. Chat, what do you guys think about this drone situation? Are we getting invaded? Christian, what do you think?
So my take is, number one, I have family in New Jersey. I have friends in New Jersey, and I was there this weekend, and I was driving, and I was driving to meet friends, and I did see something buzzing around. And there's certainly, I think, number one, you're going to see things misidentified, because now people are really looking in the sky and they're getting some things confused with planes. That's fine.
Sure.
But there's definitely things that are going on. Now, we heard yesterday from one of the White House press. I forget who, Jake Sullivan, I think it was, or Kirby, one of these guys, and was talking about, because they've been investigating it now for like a week, and they came out with more information yesterday, and they basically said that yes, we see them taking off. They're not. We don't think they're posing any any danger right now, but yes, there's also like, and I was talking to my friends about this over the weekend and saying, hey, you could go out and get a permit. Like anybody can do this as long as you have a permit. You could fly one of these huge, not these little ones, the little ones that everybody could buy with a little remote. No, like, somebody was telling me that there are drone clubs that people belong to and people can fly these. Now, I don't know if that's, I'm not an expert on this. Clearly, there's more conspiracy theories will come out. The more that we have less information about what's going on, the more of these conspiracy theories manifest. But I wanted to just bring it back to also, so again, like we don't know exactly what's going on. People see them all over the place. You're now
Yeah.
seeing more clearer videos of people, and they're putting them on the news and so forth. Because yes, there are these. They're also what I'm afraid of is they're getting into some of the aerospace where there's airports, which to me is frightening. But that's a whole nother situation. But I was just going to bring it back to this RCAT, which had it jumped yesterday also on the fact that it has a deal with Palantir. The stock also the same day reported earnings. Now it's down a little bit on earnings, but this is just one name of many. If we go through a couple of these names, and you actually mentioned one of these names too, if I can remember what the symbol is, I have it on my watch list. It's UMAC. Remember
Yeah.
this name was in the news a couple weeks ago before you
Yeah.
before you took off on vacation. This is a name that Donald Trump Jr. Was added to the advisory board.
Yeah.
So this
When it
had
was
the
650, and then she blasted $22.
yeah. So speaking of momentum, here's a good example. But look at it come back in, and my thought on this is with the drone situation is if this is now going to be a thing where they're not going to regulate them, and they're going to say, hey, these things are okay flying around. Then these stocks I think should do okay. Unless they come out and they start saying, hey, get these things out of the aerospace. And it'll be good to hear from Frank Holmes to see if he has an opinion on this too. But if they don't say, get these things out of the skies, then maybe these stocks end up doing really well. So UMAC is one that I'm watching. ACHR is another pretty strong one too. So any of these things that are involved in drones, also, it's fun. Like I'm wondering about this small little company too, but Boeing is starting to make a move.
Perking up.
Yeah, it made a move over its 200-day moving average yesterday
Yeah.
too. So that's another name that people haven't looked at for a while. First time over its 200, and more of a value name, by the way. Right? I think Boeing is more
Well, their
value.
cash burn situation, but eventually, if they can get out of there, we know they've made some serious money before. So if you look at history of earnings here, there is some value there. I mean, my drone play has always been AVAV. That's the war drones. AeroVironment obviously got really beat up. Popped yesterday though, so showing a little bit of life here. It was really good for a long time. Beat up valuations. This is not a cheap stock, but stuff they do is really cool. I don't know. We're 14 seconds away here, so I got to go wide here. I don't want to get picked off on this retail sales number.
Yeah, I'll give you the preview. They're looking for the expectations are for month over month is a 0.6. And they're looking for X auto is a 0.4. Here comes the numbers. It's a little bit hot on the overall number. Retail sales month over month is 0.7 versus 0.6. I'll drop that in the chat. And then the other number, the X auto month over month is 0.2 versus 0.4. So one up, one down, guys. One up, one down. X auto and gas is also a little bit light. That's 0.2 versus 0.4. All right, so there you go for this. Let's see.
It's kind of a nothing burger. We got the S&Ps just bouncing around a little bit. IWM, which is a little more sensitive, just bouncing around, and then TLT, which sometimes moves off the numbers too. Retail sales, it's been beat up, but it's it seems like a nothing burger here. I don't see much movement at all. CNBC hasn't even covered it yet. They're just covering it now. Pretty quiet off this number.
Yeah, and again, I think when you have like the one up, one down number, where you've got a couple of these data points where it's retail sales month over month, and then the X auto and gas that comes in lighter, but the headline number comes in higher. The market doesn't seem to know what to do with it.
So where do we go now here? 831. I do want to just mention the TLT because obviously I think a little bit of the value sell-off is a little bit to do with rates going higher, longer term rates. And if you look recently, you started to show some life a week and a half ago. TLT popped from 90 to almost $95, right back down to 90 in 4 days. And I think it's not a coincidence. We know certain stocks don't care about rates. Certain stocks care very much about rates. With TLT's recent weakness here, I think that's a little bit to do with why you're seeing the DIA, XLI. Those are rate sensitive stuff in there, showing some weakness here. We do have some good support, 88 to 90 in the TLT. But I mean, it's funny. You got the Fed cutting rates, but it doesn't seem to matter to the TLT where, they just keep, driving longer term rates higher here by driving the TLT price lower. I mean, U.S. is in a very interesting situation because obviously much stronger. We talk about Canada. And Canada cut another, when I was away, they cut another 50 basis points. Canadian economy is just not doing well whatsoever. Obviously, tariff concerns, government, with Trudeau potentially resigning here now. Lots of, stuff happening in Canada. But it just shows you the difference, where we've got one economy, obviously very connected to the U.S., but showing so much weakness that, they're actually starting to lower aggressively. And then you have the U.S., where they just are holding the rates high. And you've got this carry trade happening, don't kid yourself, where you've got, strength in the US dollar because US rates are simply higher. So you have people converting over to US dollars to get the higher rates. Carry trade happening here to a certain extent.
I think you're spot on too with some of the separation that we're seeing that we've talked about between the value and the growth and every other name too. I think part of that has to. You're absolutely right with yields. People haven't been talking about it enough. Now you could see, by the way, TLT is rallying a little bit on the retail sales number, but it's been a very big drop over the last week and a half, and that's a catalyst too. When you have sharp moves in bonds, it affects stocks. When it's very slow, gradual moves, like equities can kind of handle that, in my opinion. But when you have a bit sharper moves, and you did, TLT in like about a week went from 94 down to 89, right? That's a pretty decent percentage move, and that's also adding to some of that separation. I agree completely with you, Dennis.
So 1 minute here, we're going to bring Frank Holmes. Actually, Frank's in the background. Let's go grab him right now. I'm going to see. We always have, obviously, Joel doing these banners thing, but I'll go see if I can do this intro. Guest intro 1. Am I right, Christian? We're going to try it.
Yes.
We got Frank Holmes. He's here. Runs the Jets ETF. Runs Hive blockchain. Is one of the smartest people we know. Go Gold, go Hive. Frank Holmes, how are you?
Outstanding. And it's ho, ho, ho season.
Awesome. Merry Christmas.
Up
there
for
you
Christmas sales. Get those sales ripping. It's going to be booming.
But what has been booming really quietly is the airlines here, Frank. People are going places and doing stuff, and your Jets ETF has quietly taken off. It's $17 back in August. We're $25 here now. People are spending money still, and people are going places, and people are doing things here. Frank, what are your thoughts on the airlines?
Well, I gave a presentation in October. No one cared. United Airlines is up 130% year to date. But all the Wall Street Journal and all the negative narrative is on Spirit. And Spirit is this small compared to the size of United. So there seems to be this propensity for a negative narrative on the industry, but it's booming. And what's really evolved this year is what they call this new group of travelers. And this new group are called digital nomads. And it's estimated up to 50 million people. They will leave Michigan, Detroit, Toronto, and they're flying south. They're going to Mexico. They're going to Medellin. Houston, United has a nonstop from Houston to Medellin, where there's a big tech center, and they'll do all their coding there. It's inexpensive to live. They enjoy the culture. Then they go to Buenos Aires, or they go to Lima. In Korea and South Korea and Japan, they fly to Thailand, Indonesia. So we have this, all the airplanes are packed. There's no discounts. And if you look a year out, trying to package, I'm going to get a cheap ticket for next year, it's not happening. So it's sort of baked in, these companies are making a ton of money.
Are there any airlines you like better than the other ones? Obviously, you run the Jets ETF and own a pile of them. Is there any specific, airline that you'd go in if you're looking at the airlines?
Well, clearly United, it would be there, and then it would be Delta in that level. Southwest Airlines is still struggling with an aggressive activist investor shaking them up. So they have some other issues to deal with, but they're all turning positive. They're all reporting a stronger revenue and cash flow. So the airports are packed. We own a lot of the airports in Jets. Paris is packed. Japan is a public airport. Thailand, Cancun, Cozumel. So there's many. It's interesting that there's many outside of the U.S. public airports.
Let's move on to Bitcoin. 100,000 has finally happened. Obviously, you run Hive Digital, and it's been a good run here for Bitcoin here. He's ready to rock. He's got the Hive hat on here too, ready to rock and roll. I mean, Bitcoin is like, we've hit the 100,000 target. Do we just keep rocking and rolling here? Is there pullbacks here? I mean, how are you playing Bitcoin?
I think it runs until the election, and there'll be strong sentiment and with policies that come out to make Bitcoin a reserve. There's lots of negativity for the gold space of senator proposing sell some of the gold reserves to go into Bitcoin. What you have seen this past year is GDX, the big ETF for gold stocks, has seen 1.5 billion redemptions, and many believe that they've gone into Bitcoin ETFs. So the Bitcoin world is clearly seeing that. We're seeing governments around the world embrace it. We are seeing like countries like Ethiopia, where they built these dams and there's no power lines after that. So it's stranded electricity. Well, all of a sudden, Bitcoin miners are going in and building out the infrastructure to villages and building out the power lines at the same time, making money mining Bitcoin. So I think that the adoption of Bitcoin from both the miners and from what's taking place in the concept of digital wealth and preservation is huge. We're talking about today 20,000 nodes validating Bitcoin 24/7 around the world, and there's 195 central banks. I mean,
talk about the mining business. Obviously, it's a business that's very competitive. Just talk about it. Where you see the mining business going.
I see some of the bigger miners are not really expanding their mining footprint now. They're buying Bitcoin. They're doing these gold convertible, not like gold, but they're like this for them, respect that they're floating these convertible notes, and they have to go and buy back some of that cash, buy back the stock just to buy more Bitcoin. They're not buying the technology. They're not expanding their footprint. They're just buying Bitcoin, and they're all in a race to compete with Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, who's been an incredible thought leader in this space that now has 2% of all Bitcoin in the world, and his stock is propelled to all-time levels. So I think that's been that strategy. But Hive has always hodled. The only reason why I went in the co-founding the creation of Hive is because in 2017 I couldn't create an ETF, so I went out to create the first crypto mining company, and I could mine the virgin coin and never have an AML or KYC problem. I put it on my balance sheet. And so I'm happy to see where Hive is. We have almost $300 million worth of Bitcoin on our balance sheet. We only source Korean energy. We're the most efficient miners. And we have a critical path over the next 6 months to take our production up 300%. And that will take us to about 2% of the global Bitcoin network. So that's what our future is.
What about this Michael Saylor strategy here? Because it sounds pretty simple, where you just do offerings, buy more Bitcoin, do offerings, buy more Bitcoin, do offerings, buy more Bitcoin. Why is, nobody else doing the offerings to buy more Bitcoin? You don't see that. Like, obviously, you're mining and keeping your Bitcoin there. But is the strategy maybe to lever up, or is this, obviously, it works very well when the price is going up. We know leverage is a double-edged sword. When price is going up, it's worked very well for Michael Saylor in the last couple of years. But there was a point in time where MicroStrategy was a little bit in trouble there because Bitcoin had fallen from 60,000 down to, I believe, 13 or 14,000. And some people were saying if it went down to 7 or 8, then MSTR might be in trouble. Obviously, it didn't happen, and his bet paid off. Is that why nobody else does it, just because of the risk?
Well, I think what you have to recognize is that the formation of capital is very complex, and the spectacular growth in ETFs. So what happens is that as he drives liquidity, and there's this run for liquidity, and we've seen this in Palantir. It left the New York Stock Exchange to go on the NASDAQ to get into the QQQ, which is a $350 billion basic ETF, and therefore their stock jumps 20%. This drive for liquidity. Well, when you do these convertible notes, you can quickly borrow from the ETFs because their fees are so low and they make more money. So they can make 20 basis points in a month, not 2 basis points or 5 basis points in a month, but 20, lending those securities. Immediately, hedge funds turn around and short the stock and put money into the company. He buys more Bitcoin, and then they unwind that trade. It's the mechanism of the ETFs that's facilitating this, and you have all these bankers looking for 12 basis points here, 7 basis points there, and they're also putting on, we just saw Riot do 100% premium. Well, they have to go buy puts and calls, and they do these synthetics through the bankers, and they charge fees. So I'm sorry for all your listeners, it's really complex. I understand how it's being facilitated, but I really believe it's on the backbone of the growth in ETFs.
That's very interesting. Hey, Frank. Just a question too, and this is kind of really getting in the weeds. But the way that they continue to finance this, what if interest rates continue to kick up? Like, how can they? Won't that really eat into the returns if rates keep going up, as they have to keep purchasing more and financing it and so forth?
That's a very good observation, Christian. Absolutely. And because it's so leveraged, it's very material. A 25 basis points to this type of game is like 100 basis points move because they're all levered. Everything's levered. So the convertibles are able to leverage themselves 5 to 1. So therefore, you see this mechanism is extremely sensitive to rising interest rates. Rates falling, all of a sudden opens up the spigot and money starts flowing in. And with like I mentioned earlier, the ETF able to go and borrow. Brokers tell me, they can say, Frank, we've got 10 million shares we can borrow for 20 basis points on Hive. Would you like to do a convertible note? I said, how do you know this? And, oh yeah, it's really simple. It's all in their basket of looking at the data mining, and their coders have been able to code and download this data from all the banks that are saying, we have these securities for securities lending because these ETFs are in need of other additional fees.
That's incredible.
So where do you see? Okay, so let's just go put your projections hat on here. You see Bitcoin, running into the election, maybe a little pullback after that. Let's go out a year from now.
I think
Does Bitcoin just continue to go higher? Is this story just like getting started here? Do we eventually see like Bitcoin 200,000, 500,000? What's the Frank Holmes projection here? Because nobody's closer to this industry than you.
$1 million.
$1 million bucks. $1 million bucks. So
But
we should be
not in
hodling.
the next year. Not in the next year.
No.
The reason for that is because one Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis. So when people go to Robinhood and buy $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, they're actually buying a basket of Satoshis. And at one penny, 100 million Satoshis makes Bitcoin worth 1 million. And 18 months ago, a creative person created what's called ordinals, where they can attach a digital image to a Satoshi. And what has happened is that there are special numbers of Satoshis on the day of the halving last year. Those Bitcoins are worth more. Those Satoshis are worth more. And if you have it during a very specific date event, then the Satoshi is all of a sudden, we've been offered $10 for a Satoshi. So not a penny, but $10. So my imagination says, well, it's just realistic that it can go to a penny, and at a penny, Bitcoin's worth $1 million. And that would mean you would have this great global adoption. And the next level will be the idea of art. So if you have one of the original 1971 Mao paintings by Warhol, prints in the blue vase, then all of a sudden that $1,000 is worth $50,000. So if you have limited supply scarcity of 21 million coins for Bitcoin, and then you have rarity of these Satoshi numbers, then all of a sudden you get this reset revaluation.
Let's take it out of Bitcoin and just talk crypto in general, because there is, like, it seems like a million different coins here. Is this, somebody was asking me the other day, it's just a crypto question. They're like, what are the crypto coins do you like? Because they know I own some Bitcoin. They're like, do you like Ethereum? Do you like, and then they're giving me up a bunch of names. I don't even know half of these coins here. Would you just stay with Bitcoin, or do you start diversifying yourself and looking, in Ethereum, looking to other cryptocurrency, or is this just Bitcoin, stay with the best?
Well, there's two ways in the crypto realm. When you go down that space, there's two ways. One is what's called proof of work, which you need electricity to validate and create a coin. That's Bitcoin. Then there's proof of stake, where it's basically a blockchain, Excel, coins that are out there that go back and forth off of, to me, an Excel sheet on steroids for simplicity. There's no electricity really consumed in proof of stake, but in proof of work, there is. And you need the electricity to validate that coin. So now Ethereum used to be proof of work, and they moved over to proof of stake, and it has really hurt their performance. Mm-hmm. We sold all of our Ethereum and focused on Bitcoin, and we've also been mining in a smaller way some of these other altcoins and convert them with using AI into Bitcoin. So we will look at any coin that is proof of work. We will look at it, but we're so big that we can dominate that coin. So we will only do it for maybe 3 hours or 3 days that we will mine to get the efficiency out of it. That's how and why we've been the most successful in respect to efficiency in mining and operating profits. Even when Bitcoin fell down to $13,000, Hive still made money during that downdraft. And what I think is really interesting is Dogecoin, because there's something that's happening. There's no cap of 21 million coins on it, but it was originally used for utility for social media and basically a currency for a token for social media world. Well, who fell in love with it was Elon Musk. And all of a sudden it became a meme. And you could turn around and buy a Tesla with Bitcoin, but you could also buy it with Doge. So it became all of a sudden this utility. And what's his new government agency to streamline the costs of various government agencies? It's called DOGE. So I think that you need to have a proof of work model to validate a Dogecoin. It uses a different hardware. It's called script versus an ASIC chip. And I think that just psychologically in this crypto world will probably grow, but it's very much not like Bitcoin, which is capped at 21 million coins. Doge has unlimited, but it captures the imagination. It captures the imagination of social media, and social media has been so significant in Elon Musk taking on Disney. We can go in that whole story of how there was collusion amongst the advertisers trying to shut him down when he bought Twitter, and how the state of Texas sued the agencies and discovered all this stuff. And now Disney's advertising on X. You're seeing that this idea of decentralized social media is growing in importance, and you guys are part of that. You are decentralized. You are not CNBC. You are not Bloomberg Television, which has a big political agenda. And so more and more people are gravitating towards getting insights that you provide.
That's what we're trying to do. That's Frank Holmes. He runs Hive Digital. He runs the Jets ETF. He is one of the smartest people we know. And if you got crypto questions, reach out to Frank Holmes there. He knows a lot of stuff. Frank, thanks so much for coming on today.
Wheels up.
Wheels up. There
Thanks,
you go.
Frank.
See you, Frank.
Thanks.
Wow, you learn so much from him. You could actually do probably an hour podcast. And I remember one time he was just talking about the mechanics behind the mining. We'll have to do that with him next time because it's been a while since we did that. But he was like doing an analogy, like it's a drop puck, and everybody's trying to get in there and get there as fast as you can. Like, I mean, so interesting, that whole business, of crypto mining and obviously blockchain. But he's a hodler. They mine the coins. I didn't know he did that. They mine the coins and they hold them. So he's a hodler. 1 million. 1 million, Christian. You getting in there, Bitcoin 1 million? You on that bandwagon?
I don't know. I mean,
are you long Bitcoin?
I do have some Bitcoin. I wish I had more.
Yeah, we all do.
But I do have Bitcoin. I have it in my trend portfolio. I also have a little bit, and I wish I had more in Coinbase. I had this idea anyway, I don't want to get off track with that, but I had the idea of just dollar cost averaging a couple years ago, and I never really pulled the trigger and just buying a little bit every month. But that's one way to kind of do it too.
Yeah,
just
sure.
with your stock, like your 401k plan, right? Where you're going in, every 2 weeks or whatever. So this way you're dollar cost averaging in, you could set that up too with a broker too, to do a little bit of that. But that was fascinating conversation, such a wealth of information. And I find that's really interesting of whether you're organically like mining the coins or whether you're doing this financing type, stuff that's going on, which has gotten
Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
Like he's mining, getting the coins, obviously costs a lot of energy, costs a lot of money to mine those coins, but then hodling them. And then you have Michael Saylor just keeps doing offerings, like just talking to other people. I'm like, it's a simplistic strategy that Michael Saylor is running. We do offerings, we lever up, we buy more Bitcoin. We do offerings, we lever up, we buy more Bitcoin. I mean, it's just, the very simplistic strategy as Bitcoin prices go up. And there's nobody probably more convinced. I mean, we got Frank Holmes talking about 1 million Bitcoin. I mean, nobody's more convicted than Michael Saylor, and he's, levered up. So, and MSTR is an interesting chart here too, because, we talked about it just earlier, but, you had the ridiculous move where it went parabolic when it went from 339 to 543 in 3 days. I mean, that's upside capitulation, that's called. Then you had the rug pull, the inevitable rug pull, but now you've consolidated, and now you've paused, and now you're starting to look a little bit more on the uppity up. Are we going straight back to 500? No, there's some pain up there. It's not going to be that simple, but it's starting to show some life here again. So, keep an eye on that chart.
I have not traded it since it had this crazy red candle. I had traded it a couple times on the way up, but I'm kind of stuck in terms of what to do with this, because usually when you see this type of a move and on this volume, it does signal, basically a top in the stock, but it is hanging around. It's staying above these short-term moving averages. So that's what I'm watching now. But I've noticed too that you're not getting too many days where you're closing on the highs. You got a couple of them, but you also have some of these traps where it's moving up and then it's giving it back. So for now, like I wouldn't mind if it consolidates a little bit more, because I don't like these trap type candles with it. Also, since we're in the space, coin has been a tough one too. Coin has just been, it's tried to go higher a couple times. I had it like on the top of my watch list. I tried trading it once. It didn't work for me. And it's just been kind of, you got to be really careful about these candles, because I think if you're starting to kind of chase and move up, you're getting these U-turns back. And for now, it's just trading in a range. I did get long some Robinhood yesterday. It did take out an upside level for me. This is called the VPOC. So it might consolidate here a little bit, but I have another one up here at 48, but it was a new long for me yesterday. I feel like I needed to get a little bit more involved in the space, and added Robinhood yesterday.
Company doing everything well. I mean, again, it's run a long way. So, again, I feel like some of these stocks getting long in the tooth, but we know momentum can continue for a lot longer than you think it can. So, I mean, stocks making new all-time highs, usually we get more new all-time highs. So I don't know if Robinhood's actually not an all-time high, but multi-year high, because Robinhood's back at $80 on the IPO when it went nuts. But we're talking about 3-4 year highs here, 3-year highs here for Robinhood. But a company that's just doing everything well. And, Cornerstone, they're in crypto too. I mean, this big mover in Robinhood has been driven by the price of Bitcoin. I mean, you can throw the price of Bitcoin up there on a chart against Robinhood, and they look a lot the same. So this is really, when you're buying Hood, you're really buying Bitcoin.
All right, few
couple more
minutes.
here. It's a couple more stocks.
Yep.
Just to cover here, we did have Hims. Spinner was talking about in the chat. Morgan Stanley raising their price target up on Hims. This is a stock, obviously, that was, has been taking off. It's been a really good story for the year. Morgan Stanley starts at overweight. I'm just reading from the note. Looking at a price target of $42, initiating coverage of Hims with $42 price target. We view Hims as a compelling compounding investment, no pun intended, kind of intended. Lots of estimates, just talking here. Price target is based on EV to sales multiple of 3.5 times CY26, in line with the current multiple on the next 12 months. So you see this continuing to grow. I mean, we've seen this cool off trade. Obviously, with Lilly and NVO have come down, substantially from their highs in the weight loss arena. Hims has kind of continued here. It had the pause for a bit, but it's now resumed uptrend to a certain extent here. What are your thoughts on this one, Christian?
I mean, I like how the technicals are working for the stock. It pulls back. There's buyers that show up. Fundamentally, I have a tough time with it because just the whole healthcare sector is so weak. Now, I get it. This is more of like a different type of play. It's more of like a boutique type feel to play like the healthcare space and the evolving health industry. But I just look at what the XLV chart is, and I don't know. Again, maybe it's a nuanced play on the group, but I mean, this healthcare ETF is getting walloped, and made a new low yesterday for the year. I think for the year. Is that right? Or at
Yeah.
least for the last few months. But
Again,
man, this is really tough. And even XB. So sorry to kind of give you like a roundabout answer because I don't feel comfortable enough to get into Hims, and that's an aggressive price target, by the way, from Morgan Stanley. But I don't know. I don't think like Hims is going to save the day, like in terms of unless you really believe that they're going to be the forefront of getting your, I guess, healthcare supplies. I don't know. What do you think that, or do you think that it's just kind of a trendy type trade?
I think it's part of this whole retail trade. So I think there's pockets of stocks that are just retail driven, and it's one of those that it's a social media darling. We've seen those stocks obviously do very well in the last couple of months, which is, Hims has participated very well as well. So, I mean, I don't know if the story goes away anytime soon, but, to your point, healthcare is an absolute mess. And maybe we should talk about this for a minute because, you have so many major pharmaceutical companies breaking down. Obviously, Pfizer is just an epic disaster. I have a little bit of that long-term portfolio. I've sold most of it now, though. Bristol Myers, which I've sold all my Bristol Myers, was a good one, but it's starting to break down here too. Biogen is an absolute disaster. $150 here now. Can't seem to get anything going. I'm still long the Amgen. I like the Amgen because I think there is the weight loss drug story here. The valuation's still attractive, but again, he's always talking about a rising tide raising all ships. Well, you have a sinking, the lowering tide, lowering a lot of stocks here because, across the board here, even going in the XBI, again, rates not helping. When TLT starts going down, we know it doesn't help, the smaller pharmaceutical companies here. So there you go, XBI weak here as well. But I mean, pharma's a mess. Is there a point in time where valuation is attractive enough to start getting into some of these names? I mean, I pulled that trigger with Bristol Myers at 41 and wrote it to 60. So that was a good one. But I mean, it's hard to call bottoms in stocks. It's a difficult business. I know that's why you don't participate in it so much. When you see stocks as making new lows, you stay away. And it's actually not a bad call. As a trader, it's difficult. As an investor, I can get attracted to some of this stuff. Merck's off $30 from where it was. Fantastic company. Is it going to turn around eventually? Probably. But right now, these stocks are all out of favor.
And Pfizer did have some news this morning. We didn't cover it, so they jumped on their guidance beats at midpoint. But the question, I guess, is the stock was up originally 3.8%. Like, is this also just going to kind of wash away and bleed out for the day? Because I don't think it has a major catalyst for it. So,
what is the catalyst? I mean, in all these, Moderna too. Obviously, COVID shots, $41 Moderna now. And I mean, it went from a cash, making machine to a cash burning machine here. It's just it's not just that story. It's to your point, when you look at the XLV, it's across the board. Even Lilly, which has been the leader of the group, the driver really of XLV and a lot of obviously pharmaceutical companies, is tired here now too. So I mean, Lilly, which is probably, they've got even the Alzheimer's drug working there. They've got so many things they're working on. Just a fantastic company. But, valuation just got stretched and the stock is tired here now. And people look at Merck at 10 times, Bristol Myers at 6 times, and look at Lilly trading, just bringing it up here at 34 times forward earnings. They're like, I'm paying 6-7 times as much for a Lilly than I am as a Bristol Myers. I think there's, at a certain point in time, we know, I always say, valuation does not matter when the story is hot. But you know what? This weight loss drug story has cooled off.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter too much, when you've got a hot story and so forth. But once you lose that momentum, and it's a great point that you bring up, that even though Lilly has come off decently from the highs of like 960 down to 780, it's still not cheap from a fundamental standpoint.
So, okay, we went a couple minutes over here. Is there anything you wanted we didn't touch on here, Christian? Obviously, Joel's going to be back. I believe he's back Thursday, but he's going to be back here shortly. So you got me and Christian again tomorrow. Anything we missed?
That's it. I mean, I think that's just a story. It's the haves and the have-nots. We got the Fed meeting tomorrow. I'm watching a couple of those drone names today, just to see what they're doing. But for now, that's the story, and you have to watch for something to kind of change.
I think I'm just at the point where I think, again, what I said earlier in the show, the easy money's been made in a lot of these Momo names. And if you're coming into them now, I feel like you're a little bit late. I think there's going to be a value turn here eventually, but I'm not going to be the person to call. I want to see some stabilize, stop going down. Give us a green candle. Give us some hope. Give us some life, because right now, obviously, in certain names, it just continues, death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, ExxonMobil, we haven't talked about this, but I mean, it's down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 11 of like the last 13 days or something. It's went from 123 to 108. And ExxonMobil is, again, a pure value name. PE on this puppy, ExxonMobil is 12. I mean, they make a lot of money. Oil's not going away anytime soon. But again, story not sexy, story not cool. Right now, the stocks that are going up are the stocks that have the cool story. And if you don't have a story attached to you, the market's not interested. That's telling you retail-driven markets. We know eventual rug pulls happen, folks. Value investing still works long-term in a lot of cases, buying good companies at reasonable valuations. But short-term, stocks are all out of favor.
All right, Mr. Dennis.
That's it.
Great show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here, guys. We will be back at you same time, same bat channel tomorrow, 8 a.m. Be here.